Sometime in the 21st century, gates suddenly appeared all over the world. The gates connected to labyrinths known as catacombs, and their monsters known as enemies ran rampant. If a catacomb is left alone for too long, the enemies begin to encroach upon our world. Humanity was trampled helpless to do anything. However, it was discovered that, if certain talented individuals stay in a catacomb for a set period, they awaken abilities called skills. Humanity used these skills to strike back against the enemies. Those skill holders, who explored and conquered the catacombs, were called dungeon divers. While inside the classroom, a professor discussed how players and dungeon divers have become the most respected profession in the world. A student sighed. His name is Sota Sasaki. Our MC, both of his parents were dungeon divers, but his father died in battle. As for his mother, Sota still dreamed of becoming a player, a brilliant dungeon diver just like them. His daydreaming was interrupted when a shadow-like creature appeared outside the window and bared its teeth as if it were about to devour him. This shocked the hell out of Sota, causing him to scream. His teacher and classmates merely looked at him, while some whispered behind his back. As if this wasn't the first time it had happened, he fell out of his chair in fear. Well, apparently no one except him can see the shadow figure, and this started happening not too long ago. He started seeing things no one else could. It's called spirit sight, the power to see spirits. When Sota's dad was still alive, they tried to awaken his skill in a catacomb, but he didn't succeed, because he was too terrified to focus. Our MC endured it for several hours, but still hadn't awakened. He still couldn't become like his father, known as the strongest flame master. Then one of his classmates asked if he was okay. The guy helped Sota up. Our MC didn't expect any assistance from this guy. The man was Takuto Saiga, his childhood friend and a player, a dungeon diver who had already awakened a skill. Takuto held him up and whispered, "After school, the usual place." The statement made Sota sweat. Other students started admiring Takuto, saying he's got a big heart, but our MC seemed to object. Sota went and arrived at the usual place, only to be greeted by a punch. "You're late, mister," self-proclaimed spirit medium. As it turned out, Takuto was nothing but a bully to him. He looks down at Sota, who was already lying on the ground. Takuto grabbed Sota by the collar and asked for the money, which Sota reluctantly gave. "Is this it?" As if Takuto was still not satisfied with the amount, Sota explained that he couldn't give more, since he needed the money for his mom's medical bills. Takuto then kicked him and told him to stop wasting money on his mother, who had already fallen into a coma inside a catacomb. He even mocked his father, saying he'd lost his mind and died like trash. The bully went on, saying both of Sota's parents were useless. Takuto then claimed that Sota was only pretending to have spirit sight to cover up his incompetence. This made Sota tear up small. Wiener even questioned why his family had ever been born. Takuto was then offended by Sota's gaze. Our MC stood up, rage burning in his eyes. Takuto told Sota to know his place, calling him incompetent trash. He started smacking the hell out of him again. Sota then realized something. It's true that his dad changed after his mom collapsed. It's true that he immersed himself in the catacombs, as if possessed, and that he died before they could even talk. In Sota's mind, surely, there must have been a reason. Our MC lay helplessly on the ground. Takuto grabbed Sota by his shirt and told him he would train him in place of his useless parents. A green gate suddenly appeared right in front of them. Sota was stunned. It was a real gate. Takuto said he found it yesterday, and that this was where the training would begin. One of Takuto's sidekicks asked if this was dangerous, but Takuto simply told him that if he had complaints, he'd better not go. Takuto was too confident about this green gate, calling it measly, because they had already cleared purple gates before. This moment terrified Sota. He clenched his fist. Takuto suddenly aimed his bow at Sota's side. As a threat, the arrow grazed his cheek. He told him to stop whining, or else the next arrow would be aimed at his mother. Instead, our MC clenched his teeth in anger, but he had no choice except to comply. All of them then went inside the green gate, and into the catacomb. As usual, only Sota could see the spirits, and this scared the crap out of him. A ball of fire suddenly appeared, and flew straight towards Sota. He froze, not knowing what to do. RMC could only brace himself for the impact. Takudo kicked the fireball, and told Soda to stop being a wimp, then mocked him. As the son of the strongest flame master, he said he was sick of Soda's excuses, and claimed there was no meaning in him being alive. He meant it. Nothing but harsh words poured from Takudo's mouth, telling Soda how much of a scumbag his father was. He said that even when his wife collapsed, Soda's father kept conquering catacombs, and died for nothing. He went on about how terrible he was, and how he valued status over his family. Takudo then suggested that, if Soda were to die in the catacomb, maybe he could finally meet his dad. Just die here, the idiot said. These hurtful words made Soda cry, thinking that everyone was looking down on him, that even the ghosts were mocking him too. But were they really making fun of him? Soda was shocked. He looked around, wondering if it was really the flames that had spoken. Then it said, "Strain your eyes and listen." Soda stared in awe. He realized he had truly heard it talking to him. Small Wiener asked what he was staring at, then froze. Blood gushed from his mouth. Takudo had been stabbed from behind. His cronies couldn't believe what they were seeing. Their boss was wrapped up and lifted into the air. It was a giant spider. One of the cronies asked if it was the queen spider, the area boss of the highest difficulty. Red Gate. It takes the tastiest looking prey back to its nest, and lays eggs inside them, while feeding. What a worst way to die indeed. And the leftover prey belongs to its children. Takado's sidekicks ran as fast as they could, leaving Soda and the fireball spirit behind. Soda was now surrounded by monsters. One of the spider's children stood in front of him, staring like he was a tasty snack. Is this the end for me? RMC wondered, but he didn't want to die. The fireball spirit spoke again, telling him not to give up, and to sharpen his senses and feel it the way you are. Now you should understand. Soda was still confused, but he clung to that faith. A light suddenly appeared, followed by a message stating that the stay duration had exceeded the threshold. Congratulations, it said. A skill had awakened due to the catacomb's blessing. The awakened skill was Legacy Anomaly, from Wandering Souls. Truly wondering, but what are they? Soda wondered. The fireball grew immensely large. RMC was stunned then. The fireball took the image of his father. Reaching out to him, Soda reached for his father's hand. As the spiders roared, they were surrounded by monsters. Finally their hands met. Then an explosion erupted, wiping out the remaining spiders. Soda felt renewed and powerful. As flames surged within him, the awakened skill Legacy Anomaly allowed him to inherit skills from Wandering Souls. The flame skill is now in Soda's hands, the same one with his dad. He cannot believe that he now has a skill. Not only that, he's become a dungeon diver. He became so emotional that even the fireball spirit noticed it. It really wasn't the time it suggested, because the monsters were already coming. A whole swarm charged towards Soda. He still didn't know what to do. Even though he had already obtained a skill, the fireball spirit scolded him to keep his senses sharp and simply concentrate on seeing it. Soda focused and his eyes began to burn with flames. He stared at the spider and saw that it was about to spit something. He managed to dodge it. The fireball explained that Soda had seen the surge of its soul. Apparently the source of the power used by all players, enemies and divers originates from the soul. The moment he saw the spider concentrate its power in its mouth should be considered a result of the anomaly skill. Another spider approached Soda, charged straight at him. He wondered how long the monster would last. It gathered energy in its mouth, but Soda kicked it before it could even spew. He was shocked that he dodged its attacks. He then jumped and punched the monster. Soda was stunned. He could fight now. The fireball explained that, because he was hosting his old man's soul inside his body, their skills and combat techniques were being shared. Soda felt as if his dad was right behind him, guiding him with this newly acquired overwhelming power. It made his eyes sting with tears. That feeling gave him the confidence to fight. With this power he punched one monster. Another was right behind him, charging energy in its mouth. But he dodged its attack just in time. Soda's eyes continued to burn with flames. He focused and studied the monster. Then something caught his eye. RMC asked the flame if he had just seen the spider's weak point. Soda leapt and struck the spider at its weak point. RMC watched closely. The spider had taken a fatal hit. Soda had left flames in the area he touched. Unexpectedly, another spider positioned itself right in front of him, took a step then turned the other way. The bastard ran for its life, but Soda wasn't having it. He gathered energy in his arm and commanded the skill. Prison Blaze the runner took a fatal hit. It was finally over. He let out a sigh. It was a bit tiring, but not bad at all for a first-timer. Flamey commented the fireball, then told Soda to go ahead and speak with his dad's soul, and listen to his lingering regrets. Only after clearing those regrets could he fully inherit the skill. That's the ability of the skill anomaly. Soda was confused as to why the fireball knew so much. It just dismissed his questions, saying Soda was still in a semi-awakened state, perceiving souls in an incomplete way. But now that he had awakened his skills, he could finally converse with a soul. So does Dad's soul appeared before him. He was smiling, as if he were incredibly proud of his son. His dad started the conversation, saying it had been a while. Our MC froze. He was about to speak, but his dad cut him off and apologized first. Soda didn't hold back. He demanded to know why his dad didn't stay with his mom. His dad said he left because he was trying to save her. The answer caught Soda completely off guard. She had collapsed because of the queen spider's venom. To make an antidote, he needed its fangs. That's why he charged into every red gate. That appeared undeniably reckless. But just when he thought he already had it, a trap was triggered. Our MC didn't know how to respond. His dad continued. He admitted he had refused to listen to anyone, forcing himself into one raid after another. Soda was still angry, even after hearing his dad's explanation. He was angry that his dad chose to carry everything alone, when they were supposed to be a family. Soda admitted he might not have been much help, but at least his dad could have talked to him. His dad was left speechless, with resolve in his eyes. Soda told him that he would be the one to save his mom. He swore he would surpass even the greatest player. His dad, he swore he wouldn't let anyone else die, and that he would become the strongest player diver. His dad was truly proud of his son, who now spoke like a grown man. He pulled Soda into a hug, telling him how proud he was and how much he loved him. He wanted to say everything now, with no regrets left behind. Soda's dad told him to become stronger than anyone else. Soon after, his dad dissolved, turning into drifting bubbles. He told Soda he was counting on him, and to take care of his mom. Soda thanked his dad from the bottom of his heart. Then a blue screen appeared, just like when Soda first acquired his skill. The conversation cleared the lingering regrets of Keiichiro Sasaki's skill is now fully inherited. Radiant Blaze, which allows the free manipulation of flames. He was now left alone. Tears of joy spilled from Soda's eyes. The fireball spirit laughed at him, saying, it was one hell of a bold claim to surpass his old man, but it had to admit it was wrong, forever thinking of Soda as a spineless wimp. Soda tried to thank the flame spirit for everything, but it brushed him off, clearly not interested in formal gratitude, as if they weren't strangers at all. That response stirred Soda's curiosity, and he finally asked who the fireball really was. Could it be someone he knew? The fire spirit tried to answer, but the connection suddenly felt unstable, and Soda couldn't understand a single word. It tried again, but the voice kept breaking up. Nothing came through clearly, like a video call lagging at the worst possible moment. Even when the fireball tried its hardest, it still couldn't say it apparently. Whatever it was trying to explain was considered a bug. The fireball simply told Soda to call it whatever he wanted for now. But of course it had to be something cool. It suggested, Soda thought, that maybe he could call it Tamo. The fireball was stunned. It hated the name, and immediately questioned Soda's taste. Soda tried to defend himself, saying it couldn't be helped. The fireball was the one who said he could call it anything. In the end it surrendered. Soda was right, so now they have to stick with it. It then reminded Soda that there was still something he needed to do next. Our MC was shocked at first, then his face turned serious, as if he already had a well-laid plan. The fireball was convinced that it looked good on him. As they walked toward the exit of the catacomb, the fireball told Soda that, if he ever wanted to see them again, he only needed to return to a catacomb. whenever he wished. Our MC finally reached the exit outside the green gate. Takuto's sidekicks were still gasping for air, bent over from running as fast as they could. Both of them couldn't understand why something like that spider existed inside a green gate, but neither had an answer. Suddenly the green gate began to glow intensely, making them both step back in shock. Rings appeared around it, revealing the truth. Now they understood what it really was. It was an irregular gate. One of Takuto's cronies didn't seem to understand. Gate difficulty was strictly ranked by color: red, yellow, purple, blue, and then green. Normally the danger level was obvious, just by looking at the gate's color. But a gate with rings meant only one thing. The danger jumped straight to the highest tier. Crony number 1 couldn't believe it. So this was effectively a red gate, he asked. Panic set in, as they wondered how they were supposed to report this to the association. Were they really going to admit they broke in illegally? And on top of that, they had beaten up a civilian. One of them said that Takuto probably got what he deserved. But crony number 2 then remembered Soda was still inside. After a brief pause, they decided no one would bother looking for him anyway. One loser disappearing wouldn't matter. That was when the green gate opened. Soda stepped out calmly and said, "Sorry for being trash." The sidekicks were stunned to see a completely different Soda. They started to wonder how he was even alive. Soda's eyes flared with flames. Crony number 2 desperately wanted answers, but our MC was busy studying the two of them. He saw that they were nothing more than weaklings compared to the spiders he had faced. The scumbag immediately blamed him for Takuto's death. Even the other crony couldn't believe what he was saying. In the end, the scumbag decided the easiest solution was to pin everything on Soda. But Soda was done listening. Tired and irritated, he told them he needed to speak with Katara. Katara was confused. The other crony, feeling brushed aside, got angry and swung a punch at him. But Soda didn't even move. He struck first, landing a solid blow straight to his face. The scumbag was sent flying and finally collapsed, while the other stood frozen, wondering if Soda had truly become a dungeon diver. And on top of that, he's unbelievably strong. Soda then asked Kotora for a favor, and though drenched in sweat and clearly shaken, Kotora agreed. They re-entered the catacomb together. Katara knew deep down that neither of them stood a chance, but Soda explained that this was their opportunity to enter an irregular gate. If they didn't act now, it would be too late. Our MC was confident and fully determined to defeat the Queen Spider. Katara was shocked when he realized this had been Soda's plan all along, insisting they should call for backup instead. Before he could say more, a voice shouted from behind them, "Hold it!" Both Soda and Katara flinched, spinning around in fear, as if another ghost had appeared. A loud, confident man stepped forward, blocking their path, and it was clear he wasn't going to let them do whatever they wanted. Not while he was still breathing. Who is this stranger and why is he here in the catacomb? Both Soda and Kuroda had no idea who he was, so they asked him outright. The man refused to give his name, saying he wouldn't reveal himself to suspicious people. Soda tried to explain, but the man cut him off. He pointed out that Soda was the one who had been unconscious outside the gate earlier. On top of that, exploring a catacomb required 3 people, yet Soda and Katara were only 2, which made them even more suspicious. From the way he spoke, it was clear the man had enough reason to arrest them. Right then and there, the man readied himself to teach the 2 a lesson, while our MC tried to explain one last time. But he clenched his fist and shouted that he didn't ask Soda any questions. As the man rushed in and threw a punch at Soda, Soda dodged. He knew he had no choice, and countered with a sharp uppercut. It didn't even faze the man, who smirked and sarcastically said that Soda was pretty good. He cast his skill Man of Steel. It was an ability that turned his body into steel. His fists hardened completely, and he warned Soda that one hit from them would seriously hurt. Soda immediately recognized the man's power. If they pushed their luck, he knew they were already done for. So Soda turned and ran, retreating and leaving Katara behind with the man. The man shouted after him, telling Soda to come back and fight, saying it was supposed to be one hell of a battle. Katara was stunned but quickly followed Soda. The man continued searching for them, shouting that they should come out and fight him. Fair and square, both of them hid inside the cave, knowing they couldn't fight him yet. Not now. Sota knew for sure they couldn't face him barehanded, and using fire would only put them in danger too. Suddenly, a green fireball spirit appeared in front of Sota. The spirit recognized that bastard man of steel. His name was Tuma. Sota heard the spirit say that, seeing Tuma had awakened him, and now it was time for revenge. Curious, Sota asked if something had happened between the spirit and Tuma. The spirit was shocked that Sota could see him. Sota simply replied that yes, he definitely could. The spirit then explained that he and Tuma had hated each other long ago. They had decided to settle things once and for all. In a one-on-one fight, unfortunately, he lost. He planned his revenge, but ended up dying inside the catacomb. It frustrated him deeply. He couldn't even die in peace like this. Seeing this, Sota offered to help him. With confidence, Sota stepped out to face Tuma again. Tuma, still cocky, was pleased to see him and laughed, happy that Sota finally came out. Sota shouted his full name. Igarashi. Toma froze. How the hell does he know my name? As Sota prepared to punch him, he apologized. Then a green electric lightning bolt struck Toma. The shock stunned him and slammed him to the ground. Standing over Tuma, the green fireball emerged from Sota's body. Celebrating his victory, the spirit happily thanked Sota. His regret was finally cleared, and it was time for him to move on. Sota said his goodbyes, and realized that everyone carries their own regrets. A blue screen appeared once more. A new skill has been inherited. Stun can generate a powerful electric shock. For an instant, Kotora soon found Sota, and saw that he had defeated Tuma. Sota asked why Kotaro still came looking for him, when he could have just run away. Kotaro replied that he still didn't know why he had been brought along in the first place. Turned out Sota needed Kotora's skill. Poison Master. His main purpose was to manipulate poison. Sota knew firsthand that Kotora could create antidotes, as long as he had the materials. He had experienced it before. Katora asked what Sota needed him to do. RMC answered. He was determined to defeat the Queen Spider. He needed Poison Master to help his mother recover. Even though Kotora didn't need to fight, he decided to fight anyway. But he asked Sota one thing. Please save Takuto. Kotora thanked Sota, saying that because of him, he had been saved over and over again, and was able to awaken his skill. You're my benefactor. Sota refused to save Takuto, saying he would never forgive him. Still, he offered Kotora a choice, to save Takuto on his own, while Sota focused on fighting the Queen Spider. Kotora was speechless. Sota turned and promised he wouldn't interfere. This made Kotora smile. Suddenly Tuma woke up from the stun. The two panicked, but Tuma unexpectedly hugged both Sota and Kotora, saying they were going to make him cry. This confused Sota and Katora, but at least they're now 3 inside the catacomb. Toma said that Sota should have told him the reason from the very start, but our MC argued that he was the one who attacked. Without listening, Toma offered to help her, but Sota hesitated. He was worried it would become too dangerous. Tuma still insisted there was no way he wouldn't help. He was doing this because he wanted to. Just then the mad and hungry Queen Spider appeared in front of them. Perfect timing and no time left to run. Tuma grinned as his fists turned to steel once again, ready to fight alongside Sota and Kotora. Right then and there, the terrifying Queen Spider now stood right in front of them, ready to devour them whole. Katora asked Toma how far he had gotten in clearing catacombs. So far, Toma had cleared the purple gate area, but a red gate was still new territory for him. This was easily the biggest challenge he had faced, and he had no intention of holding back. As Tuma prepared to shield the two of them, Sota suddenly stepped forward to face the Queen Spider, himself shocking everyone. He was fully determined to defeat it, to avenge both of his parents. The Queen Spider charged. Sota dodged its attacks with ease, weaving in and out, as if he had done this countless times before. The Queen Spider launched a web attack. Sota jumped onto it without hesitation. Suma and Kotora could only stare in disbelief. This version of Sota felt completely different, as if he had already cleared a red gate before. Katora knew that wasn't possible. Sota had only become a dungeon diver a few hours ago, yet his attacks and dodges were those of a veteran. Then flames suddenly burst from Sota's hands. No way he can use fire, Toma muttered. He's been holding back. That was enough to fire Tuma up too. He couldn't afford to lose here either. His fists turned to steel. As his Man of Steel skill activated, he slammed a punch into one of the spider's legs, putting everything he had into it. But to his surprise, nothing happened. It was as if the attack did absolutely nothing. What Tuma didn't realize was that the spider's head was already behind him, ready to unleash a fatal strike. As Tuma's life flashed before his eyes, Soda leapt in out of nowhere and struck the spider's head. With his newly acquired skill, Electric Shock Stun, green lightning surged and struck the spider square in the back. But the queen spider was far too tough. The stun barely affected it. The two claimed Soda quickly suggested using fire, as long as Tuma could act as a distraction. Tuma didn't hesitate. It was a solid plan. He turned his entire body to steel. Tuma activated his overdrive mode, fully prepared to face the spider head-on. The queen spider noticed that its attack wasn't getting through. Tuma taunted the monster and demanded it put more spirit into its attacks. He knew his skill wouldn't last long. Soda had to finish this fast. The queen spider opened its filthy mouth and lunged toward Tuma. It had taken the bait. As it closed in, Soda leapt off Tuma's back, his fist blazing with fire. Flower flame, he smashed one of the spider's legs. The queen spider screeched in agony. As the burns took effect, it retreated, proving that fire really did work. The three continued to move. Katora was amazed by how the two of them fought. They actually had a chance to win. And now it was his turn to save Takuto. Katora ran forward, when suddenly a shoe fell in front of him. He knew immediately whose shoe it was. Takuto's. The queen spider was already devouring Takuto's lower body. Kotora screamed at the top of his lungs. He rushed in ready to strike with all his strength. But the spider raised one of its legs and stabbed downward. It was only inches away from Kotora when Tuma rushed in to save him. The spider's leg pierced his back instead. The steel coating shattered, breaking apart and falling to the ground piece by piece. Was my steel too soft? Soda didn't hesitate. He charged toward the spider to save his newly found friends. But one of the spider's legs caught him and hurled him into the catacomb wall. He crashed to the ground. The spider wrapped Soda tightly in its web, then crawled closer and held him up in the air. It opened its filthy mouth once again. It was about to devour him. But this was exactly what Soda was waiting for. He was grateful to be this close, pretending to be unconscious. He burned the web around his body. Tuma was amazed by his trick. He grabbed a shard of Tuma's fallen steel and stabbed the spider straight in the eyes. The moment the blade pierced through, Soda unleashed electric shock, channeling the electricity directly into its body. With his other hand engulfed in flames, he punched the spider straight in the mouth. The attack burned the spider from the inside out. With a final convulsion, it collapsed lifeless onto the ground. Thanks to Tuma's shattered steel, Soda had done it. He could finally save his mom. On the other side, Toma and Katara stood over Takuto's lifeless body. Katara broke down in tears, overwhelmed with grief and disbelief. Toma gently offered to carry Takuto, so they could give him a proper burial. Tuma then approached Soda to congratulate him for defeating the queen spider. But Soda shook his head and said he couldn't have done it without Tuma's help. Tuma was amazed. Soda had multiple skills, and that electric shock reminded him of someone he once hated. Soda revealed that the electric shock skill came from Goku. Because of that, he wanted to visit Goku's grave. Tuma froze in shock. There was no grave to visit. Goku was still alive. Tuma said. Our MC got confused. Tuma explained that he had met him just yesterday. There was no mistake about it. Our MC was stunned suddenly. Soda clutched his head as a sharp migraine hit him. The fireball spirit's voice echoed in his mind. You've touched the root of this world. A memory surfaced. Soda, sitting in a classroom with a girl standing beside him. But he had no idea who she was. Soda's body collapsed, falling unconscious to the ground. As darkness took him, the fireball spirit continued speaking, reminding him that the one he needed to save was not just his mother inside the hospital. Tuma asked Soda if this man was actually the face of the spirit he met inside the catacomb. Our MC confirmed it. After the grueling fight with the spider, the clash between Tuma and Goku still wasn't over. Tuma teased Goku, asking if he was really himself or just a twin, calling him vicious looking. I am an only child, Goku answered. Tuma accepted the explanation. since Goku really did come off as a spoiled brat. The two of them kept bantering like kids, completely forgetting they were in a hospital. Sota had to step in and calm them down, especially when people started staring. Both of them finally shut up, and Sota asked if it was safe to assume that the gate they cleared was now closed and stabilized, and Tuma and Goku both assured him that it was. They had double-checked everything before leaving. Once the boss of a gate is defeated, the gate stabilizes, and no longer poses any threat of enemy invasion. Sota thanked both of them for clearing the gate, and went off to check on Kotora. As Sota walked away, Goku asked if he really was the one who defeated the boss. Tomo confirmed it. Sota had taken down a red gate boss. Goku was stunned. It seemed that inheriting skills from wandering souls was actually possible after all. An insane ability, combined with Sota's quick thinking and sheer guts. That was when Tuma got a good idea, recruiting Sota into their team. Tuma then said he had a favor to ask Goku, but Goku wasn't having it. The two started yelling at each other again. Outside the hospital, Kotora was working on parts taken from the fallen spider to extract the poison. Sota found him. The analysis was almost complete, and the antidote would be ready soon. Kotora asked how Sota was doing, especially after he lost consciousness. Inside the catacomb, Sota thanked Kotora for helping him. Kotora shared he had the lightest injuries. He then apologized, saying he only held everyone back. Sota brushed it off. When someone important is in danger, your heart wavers, and Sota understood that feeling all too well. It reminded him of his parents. Of course, Takuto was different. Sota still didn't like him, but for Kotora it wasn't the same, and Sota respected that. I can't beat that, Kotora said. RMC didn't understand what he meant, but just as their conversation ended, the antidote was finally finished, thanks to the amazing poison. Master, Kotora handed it to Sota, and urged him to hurry and take it to his mom. RMC was truly grateful. He ran as fast as he could to his mother's hospital room. This was it, the thing that could save her, now in his hands. He looked at his mother lying there unmoving, and gently made her drink the antidote. Katara created one gulp, and just like that, her whole body glowed. Her eyes slowly opened. The poison was gone. The moment she woke up, Sota felt his chest tighten. Just seeing her awake again brought him to tears. She recognized him instantly, and noticed how much he had grown. The two of them became emotional, like they were reuniting after being separated for so long. They talked about Sota's father. His mom asked what his father had truly felt. RMC said that saving her had always been his father's greatest wish. He added that his father had entrusted everything to him, his feelings, his power, and his will, including the Kachiro flames. This shocked his mom. That wasn't good news for his mom. She asked Sota what he planned to do next, now that he had fulfilled his father's wish and saved her. And Sota hesitated. She was right. What now? But deep down, he already knew his answer. He was determined to become the strongest dungeon diver, so that no one would ever have to die again. That wasn't something his mom wanted to hear. Sota asked if she was against his decision. She didn't sugarcoat it. She answered yes right away. The thought of her son constantly risking his life made her chest ache, but she knew they, his parents, were the reason he felt this way. Still, she admitted it wouldn't be fair to stop him from chasing his dream. This made Sota blush. She made him promise just one thing, that he would include himself among those he swore to protect. If he died, she wouldn't be able to bear it. Sota vowed he won't let that happen. They hugged tightly, clinging to each other's warmth. It was the first time they had truly been together again. When Sota finally stepped out of the room, something caught his attention. Toma and Katara were nearby, both wiping their eyes and pretending not to cry. They had heard everything. Toma admitted they didn't mean to eavesdrop, but Sota just brushed it off and said it was fine. But the real problem still remained. Sota had entered a catacomb without permission. What were they supposed to tell the association? So Tuma shrugged it off confidently. Their group was already handling it. No need to worry. Then he invited Sota to join them. If Sota truly wanted to become the strongest dungeon diver, their group was the fastest way to get there. Somewhere far from the hospital, inside a yellow gate, a man walked across the lifeless bodies of catacombs. Monsters, he apologized to someone. saying that Tuma had acted on his own. He was speaking to a white-haired man, who sat casually atop a pile of dead monsters. The white-haired man didn't mind. After all, he wanted to meet someone too. A guy named Soda Sasaki. A team is an organization that submits a formation notice to the Dungeon Diver Association, receives official approval, and carries out catacomb exploration and boss subjugation. In other words, a team is obligated to take on dungeon conquests. While walking on a peaceful sunny day, Tuma proudly explains to Soda and Kotora that he was a member of the renowned team called Tenro. Kotora quickly jumped in, saying that Tenro isn't just a top-class group in Japan. It's one of the best teams in the world. The team is divided into squads numbered 1 through 10, each led by an incredibly skilled captain, and above all of them stood the commander-in-chief himself. Tuma tapped Kotora on the back, impressed by how accurate and well-informed he was. Kotora then remembered how Takudo used to admire Tenro. He had dreamed of joining them someday, training non-stop even without being part of any team. Tama was speechless. Soda joined the conversation, saying he knew a bit about them too, that the commander-in-chief's name is Yamato Sumeragi. He had resolved historic incidents all over the world, and the Japanese Dungeon Diver Association had officially named him the strongest. Soda wondered what it would be like to meet someone that incredible. Kotora asked the MC if he was nervous, but he quickly shook his head. He said he wasn't nervous at all. He was actually just really thankful for the opportunity. Tuma was impressed. This kid's got some serious guts. Just in time, they arrived at the headquarters. From the outside, it looked like nothing more than an old house, but appearances were deceiving, and Tuma assured them it wasn't what it seemed. The moment the door opened, a huge space spread out in front of them. It was a high-tech facility, completely different from what they expected. Just as Tuma was about to start explaining and bragging about the place, a man suddenly appeared behind him and punched him on the head. The man scolded Tuma for acting on his own and exploring a catacomb, then dumping the explanation for that special exception onto the team. Tuma immediately got defensive, insisting that he had Yamato's permission. The man didn't stop punching. This was Tuma's older brother. As he kept throwing punch after punch, he asked Tuma if he had dumped all the paperwork on Goto from the second squad. That question reminded him of how Goto had mocked him earlier. There's no way that guy kept quiet. He definitely snitched on him. Still, the two brothers just kept going with throwing punches and trading banter. Soda excused himself, trying to stop the brothers, but the man interrupted him, calmly calling out both Soda's and Kotora's names. He introduced himself as UCI Igarashi, the deputy commander-in-chief of Tenru. UCI bowed deeply and apologized on behalf of his younger brother. He admitted that Tuma had always been the type to rush ahead without listening. Our flustered and shy MC insisted it was fine. After all, Tuma had been a huge help. Just then a man walked in and said that UCI had always been way too strict with Tuma. It's the same man we had seen inside the catacombs, sitting atop piles of dead monsters. Yamato Sumeragi. He added that Tuma was only trying to help people, so Yusei should cut him some slack. Soda froze. He hadn't expected the commander-in-chief to be this normal. Soda just looks at them while they're talking, and noticed that Yamato is smaller than the Igarashi brothers. Soda activated his ability and looked into their souls. Yusei was clearly stronger than Tuma, but Yamato's soul felt ordinary. No, maybe even less than that. Yamato looked in Soda's direction and greeted him, saying he was excited to finally meet him. He was impressed by Soda's anomaly ability. Our MC thought that this Yamato is more easygoing than he imagined. Then Yamato asked him a simple question. Did Soda truly want to become the strongest? Yamato invited him to see what strongest really meant, to which our MC agreed before UCI could warn them. Yamato reassured everyone it would be fine, and that he would hold back. Besides, Soda already looked completely fired up. UCI had no other choice, and just decided he would step in, only if things got dangerous. Yamato led them into the training room. In an instant the surroundings transformed. The change was so fast that Soda didn't even have time to process it. Yamato raised his left hand, giving Soda a heads up that he was about to punch. Soda activated his burning eyes again. He knew he could never let his guard down. Yamato might use some kind of skill. He tried reading Yamato's soul. Still blank, then Yamato's aura shifted. A bright orange aura has emerged from the leader. Too late. Yamato's already in front of him. The punch landed, blasting Sota straight into the wall. Toma, Uci, and Kotora all shouted Sota's name in panic. The impact cracked the wall behind him. For a moment Sota thought an explosion had gone off. But more importantly, what the hell was that? Yamato's soul had the shape of a human. As our MC tried to stand up, he realized it wasn't a skill. It was a massive, overwhelming concentration of pure energy. Yamato asked the MC if he still wanted to keep going. And that made Sota realize another thing. Instead of backing down, it just fired him up even more. His flames surged from within. As he forced himself back up, Yamato attacked again, swift and relentless. But this time Sota was able to dodge. This surprised Yamato, but it's only expected. Punch after punch came flying. Yet Sota kept avoiding them. He realized that even if he managed to block it one more solid hit, and he probably wouldn't be able to stay on his feet. He told himself he couldn't just rely on his eyes to keep up anymore, that he had to feel it too. Every movement, every shift, using every single part of his body to react. This is it, a moment against the strongest. What an opportunity. Sota's blood burned with excitement as Yamato kept coming at him again and again. He didn't want it to stop. He wanted more, harder hits, faster moves, no holding back. Yamato happily threw punches and kicks, one after another, but Sota dodged every single one. He was already bruised, but he kept pushing through. The fight he chose. Uci could hardly believe what he was seeing, but he couldn't help admiring Sota's courage for not backing down. Suma asked his brother what he thought, but Uci just smiled and said that he thought maybe it actually turned out pretty well. Sota's fist started to glow, small flames flickering around it. As the heat slowly built up, he looked at the commander-in-chief and asked if he could finally go all out. Yamato's expression changed slightly when he heard that. Then he told him that this was his serious mode, his strongest form, so asking for permission kind of takes the fun out of it. Better yet, for Sota to come at him with everything he got. Our MC braced himself, ready to give his all-out power. Sota's burning fist flew toward Yamato, flames bursting on impact. Yamato's eyes widened. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. That skill. It belonged to none other than Saitama Sasaki, the strongest fire mage. Seeing it again made Yamato feel excited. Just like the old days, he praised Sota, saying he had real guts, and admitted he was starting to like him more and more. Hearing that from the commander-in-chief was a huge relief. Our MCS drenched in sweat and completely exhausted. But the training wasn't over yet. Yamato slowly raised his right hand, and a bright orange aura flared up around him. The commander-in-chief's about to take things up another level. Suddenly alarms blared throughout the facility. An emergency announcement echoed through the halls. There's an enemy invasion outside. Everyone froze. A massive outbreak had occurred in Sakurasawa town. Sota has not yet recovered from the training, but there's an enemy invasion already. Yamato's excitement vanished instantly. Things were just getting fun, but the training would definitely have to stop. Apparently, if a boss is left alive too long after a gate opens, enemies spill into the real world and begin attacking civilians. Yamato explained that gates near cities are almost never ignored like this, so this time, it's probably because some challengers had failed to clear their gates in time. The commander-in-chief stepped in right away and took control of the situation. He asked UCI which teams were ready to move. Teams 1, 2, and 5. UCI answered without hesitation. Yamato quickly gave out orders. Team 5 was to escort the civilians and make sure they got to safety. Teams 1 and 2 were told to spread out and secure positions about 5 kilometers around Sakura Zawa town, stopping the enemies before they could spread any further. Yuzi's and Tuma's teams were tasked with handling the gate itself. Curious, Sota asked Yamato what he would be doing. The commander-in-chief said he would charge straight into the enemy and take down the ones scattered across the city. Himself, Sota quickly asked if he could come too. He wanted to see what a real battle was like. Yamato looked at him and warned him plainly. If he couldn't keep up, he'd be left behind. Without hesitation, RMC didn't back down. He was fully determined. So he agreed. Kotora was also told to join them. Basically, to keep an eye on Sota while they were out there. Then the commander-in-chief raised his voice and gave the final order. It was time to move out and no one was allowed to die. In the suspected enemy invasion area, Yamato and Sota are dashing forward at full speed. Kotora is struggling to keep up. Their pace was unreal. He grew worried about Sota after real combat, right after intense training. This was clearly too much. Without further ado, Yamato plowed through enemies, punching one after another. He glanced back and noticed Sota lagging behind, clearly exhausted. Had he expected too much from him? Sota's legs gave out and he tripped. Kotora rushed to his side asking if he was okay. Sota questioned himself. Was this really the time to show weakness? Kotora looked seriously worried. Deep down he thought this was just too much. Maybe it was impossible after all. Maybe they should leave everything to Yamato. And the Tenro team. Sota had the courage to stand there. But he was clearly exhausted. Kotora asked him why he was pushing himself this hard, when it was already taking a toll on him. Sota is already strong, and they could easily let Yamato handle the fighting. But Sota refused to step back. He said he wasn't going to run away, and later, blame himself for not being strong enough this time. For the first time in his life, he was making a choice for himself. He wanted to become the strongest. If he gave up now, he felt like he'd lose more than just the fight. He'd lose his reason to keep going, and he was done lying to himself. He knew exactly what he wanted to catch up to Yamato. Hearing this, Kotora pulled out a small bottle and activated his poison alchemy. He created something on the spot. He handed it to Sota, who almost dropped it from surprise. The drink could unlock hidden power and boost the body, but only for a short time, and it came with side effects, Kotora claimed. Sota really stared at the small bottle, took a short breath and thought it through. Should he drink it or not? While Yamato continued crushing enemies left and right, Yusai on the phone reported that the catacomb had already been checked. There were no bosses left inside, which meant it had already escaped into the city. What could only do now is to prevent more enemies from coming out of the gate. Before they could finish the call, a massive ogre appeared in front of Yamato. Yamato thought it might be the boss, so it would be easy enough to deal with. Then suddenly someone charged past him. Yamato's eyes widened. It was Sota. He slammed his flaming fist straight into the ogre's face. Thanks to Kotora, Sota's power had surged. Kotora couldn't believe it. RMC thanked him. He had drunk the potion after all, without knowing the side effects. The boost kicked in, instantly flooding his body with strength. Sota dashed right away. Kotora had no choice but to just cheer him up, to keep going. The ogre was sent flying and crashed to the ground. Unconscious Yamato stared in genuine amazement. Another giant enemy appeared ahead of them. Sota stepped forward, flames bursting from his body. He looked at Yamato and spoke with unwavering resolve. No matter how far ahead Yamato was, he wouldn't give up. He would keep chasing him. Right behind him, another giant enemy showed up out of nowhere. Yamato could only sigh, what a pain in the ass. He then noticed something. Something was different about Sota. Power was pouring out of him non-stop. His eyes slowly shifted into a sharp yellow-orange. Flames exploded around his body, wild and hard to ignore. Yamato explained that the huge ogre in front of them was the boss from the gate, the one that triggered the whole invasion. Any enemies that escaped into the real world would stay there even if the boss was killed, so taking him down wouldn't magically end everything. Still seeing how serious Sota looked, Yamato asked if he wanted to handle the boss himself. Sota didn't hesitate. He agreed right away. Yamato believed he could do it, but he would stay alert, ready to jump in if things got bad. Then, in the blink of an eye, Yamato disappeared. He leapt and jumped across buildings so fast that Sota lost sight of him instantly. Now it was really all on Sota. He took a deep breath and focused. He had been trusted with this fight. The ogre lifted its massive weapon and swung it down with full force. Sota barely dodged in time, but something felt wrong. The ogre's defense was on another level. The plan was simple: get in close, make it lose balance, then finish it with hellfire. Sota charged forward without overthinking. He threw punch after punch, flames blazing with every hit, but it didn't work. If anything, it only made the ogre more furious. The ogre roared and slammed its fist into Sota, sending him crashing straight into a wall. The hit was so heavy that Sota coughed up a bit of blood when he landed. Meanwhile, the ogre didn't even have a scratch. That's when it hit him. The ogre was resisting fire. It just stood there like his attacks meant nothing. His flames, the thing he relied on the most, barely did any damage. That shook him more than the punch did. Lightning could stun it, sure, but stunning wasn't the same as killing it. Sota wondered what to do next. Then he remembered something. Something that the fireball spirit had told him before. Don't depend only on your father's power. Your fire is strong, but not everything burns, the fireball said. Sota tried to argue that he already knew that, but the fireball asked, "Are you really sure?" It scolded him just because he was strong. Didn't mean he could rush in blindly. The fireball had taught him one last move just in case. At first the thought excited him, but then he remembered the warning. It wasn't a guaranteed technique. It was more like a maybe even. The strongest fighters in the world couldn't always pull it off. Only someone who truly understood their own soul could use it properly. Sota got impatient. What was the move already? Kick a punch. Just tell him. The fireball explained that it didn't matter if it was a kick or a punch. He just had to pour every bit of his aura into one single strike. He argued that he always fought at full power anyway, but the fireball shut that down. Sometimes holding back was part of control. Aura normally flows naturally from the soul, through the whole body. Forcing all of it into one single point was insanely hard. Even experienced fighters could only gather a small portion of it. But someone who truly understood their soul could control that flow perfectly and release way more power than usual. It sounded amazing, but it needed extreme focus. And in a fight where one mistake could mean death, focusing that hard was almost impossible. Sota was literally in the middle of battle. How was he supposed to calmly focus now? That's why the fireball said it only worked in certain situations. And it left him with one final piece of advice. If the enemy is too strong, just run. Back in the present, Sota stood face to face with the boss ogre again. This time he wasn't panicking. He was locked in. He focused deeper than he ever had before. His flames grew bigger, hotter, more controlled. The noise around him faded. The pain in his body dulled. His earlier fight with Yamato had trained him for this moment. Then the ogre roared loudly, trying to scare him. Sota didn't even blink. The ogre charged straight at him. And then something clicked. He finally understood the move. Sota ignited his flames and dashed forward. He jumped high into the air and released even more fire, pushing his power further than before. This time it felt different. He aimed straight for the ogre's head. Green lightning flashed, stun. The ogre froze for a split second, confused. That tiny opening was all Sota needed. He looked it directly in the eye. Then he drove his flaming fist straight into its face. With everything he had as the punch connected, the name of the move echoed in his mind. Soul Blast. Flames exploded from his fist, bigger than anything he had ever produced. The impact was massive, sending the ogre flying across the battlefield. Sota finally touched the ground. The fire burned deep and completely overwhelmed the giant. Crashed down and didn't get back up. Sota slowly raised his hand, breathing hard, celebrating the win. He could feel it. He was getting closer to Yamato's level. But then out of nowhere dizziness hit him hard. He fell to the ground. His strength started fading fast. No, not now. He remembered the drink Katara had given him, and the warning about the side effects. So this was the price. More ogres began stepping in, forming a circle around him. His legs felt weak as his vision started to blur. One thought crossed his mind. Was this really how it ends? In another place, Yamato looks up at a towering building, thinking it would make a perfect landmark. He leaps into the sky to take in the superb skyline. As he lands on top of a building, he calls out to Goto. Reported that Squad 2 has finished sealing the enemies within a 5-kilometer radius of the tower. Squad 1 reported the same. The chief commander thanked him. He was ready to begin. With everything finally in place, Yamato releases blue flame like energy around his body. It spread across him, swallowed the entire building and then the whole area. Back to Sota, now cornered by a pack of furious ogres. There's no time to think about what comes next. He just has to act, not to win, just to survive. There's no giving up in a place like this. He forces himself to stand, bracing for the ogres' attacks. Suddenly a blue flash bursts out, electrocuting all the ogres at once. What the hell was that attack? Then it hits him, that must be Yamato's power. Yamato stands atop the building, fist raised, blue aura pouring out of him. The energy covered the entire 5-kilometer radius. Yamato admitted it took a little time to pull off. Then he said seize his skill. Punishment was casted, striking every enemy within, one by one in different locations. If they collapsed to the ground defeated, Soda can only stare in shock. He was saved by the bell, and somehow he's completely unharmed. That's when Soda realized it. That aura wasn't just massive, and it wasn't just spread across the city. Its only purpose was to kill every single ogre. Then somebody arrived. Our MC turned to look. All Soda can do is feel relieved that he's alive and saved. The commander-in-chief walked towards him, happily praising Soda for his good work. So this is the strongest, was all our MC could think. He admitted to himself. Yamato feels so far away. Soda's vision then started blurring. Then Soda lost consciousness. Luckily Yamato caught him. Yamato then noticed something. The boss ogre's presence had vanished, even before punishment was unleashed. Soda's task was only to buy him time. Still, he can't believe Soda actually defeated the boss on his own. This Soda guy, he's really interesting. Two newcomers approach Yamato, teasing him for being flashy as always. They're Kakeru Amami Tenryu's first squad captain, and Karen Sawaraji, the first squad vice captain. Kakeru jokes that Yamato might get a complaint from the association for blasting his aura through the city. Yamato shot back with a tease of his own. Smooth talking was Kakeru's job, as far as he was concerned. The chief was too happy he got to put on a flashy show and scout a promising new member. Kakeru asks for the new guy's name. He's Soda Sasaki. Yamato entrusts Soda to the first squad, telling them to take good care of him. What Yamato doesn't know is that Kakeru was already planning to recruit Soda. Anyway, he remembered Soda's mother, now sitting on her bed holding a book. She smiled as she looked at it. It was a photograph of Soda's family, together with Kakeru. As it turned out, raising Soda felt like a responsibility he had always been meant to fulfill. At the Heavenly Wolf headquarters training grounds, this is where players train with their teammates. Tuma and Soda were paired up. The prick was 100 serious. He turned his entire body into steel. He then taunted Soda and told him to make the first move. Our MC just nodded. He suddenly moved forward, reminding Soda that enemies won't wait around, so they have to be ready at any moment. Tuma threw a punch and Soda didn't react in time. He took the hit straight to the head. Tuma scolded him. Soda's big finisher was way too obvious. Our MC argued that it worked back then. Big moves hit hard, sure, but they leave you wide open. Tuma tells him he needs proper setup time if he wants to pull those off. After all, Soda couldn't even move for days. Everyone was worried sick about him. Probably the backlash from Soul Roar. He definitely needs more time and practice. Then someone steps into the conversation, telling both of them to take training more seriously. Our MC cluelessly asked who she was. It was Karen Sawaraji, the vice captain of Squad 1. The question offended her. Karen immediately asked him to stop being rude. She was a vice captain, for Christ's sake, and he was just a regular squad member. Almost immediately, Tuma and Karen start bickering like kids. There's a little power tripping happening here. Catches Soda off guard. She's so young yet she's already a vice captain. She was amazing, our MC admitted. While Tuma put on his shirt, Karen turned her attention to our MC. Soda greets her properly, and mentions that he's been assigned to Squad 1. Karen already knows who he is, the lucky guy, who accidentally beat the boss and got recruited. She also knows his parents were famous conquerors back in their day. She bluntly implies that he's only in the squad because the captain allowed it. As a favor, other members heard her. That makes her curious. Why would the captain choose someone like him? Tuma was about to argue with her again, but Soda stopped him. She's not wrong, he admitted. Still, Soda believes the captain saw potential in him. It may not be enough from now, but it's their ever polite. He asked the vice captain to kindly guide him properly. From now on, this catches Karen off guard. She expected him to be angry, not respectful because of his attitude. She agrees to train him without warning. Karen orders a change of location. In an instant, the area turns into a sunny grassy field. It feels like they're suddenly outdoors. She warned Soda that her training used real skills. If he got nervous, she could hold back for now. Our MC agreed right away. Yeah, she should do that. That only irritated her more pathetic piece of shoe. She didn't want to hurt him, but there he was already getting on her nerves. She was sure Soda was going to regret this. Karen launched her attack. Rage of Gaia, the ground trembled violently. Dirt rose up, trapping Soda inside a dome. She mocks him, asking what he's going to do. Maybe cry and apologize so she'll let him out. Suddenly the dirt dome erupts in flames. Cracks spread everywhere until Soda bursts out. He fires back with a tease, saying the vice captain is awfully kind for building him such a soft wall. Karen is stunned by the counterattack, and now she's angry. She attacks again. This time the ground turns into quicksand. Soda's feet sink, as if the earth itself is slowly swallowing him. Karen rushes toward him, fist ready to strike. But Soda, more prepared than ever, ignites his hands in flames, and throws a punch of his own. To my panics, they're both going all out now. Someone could actually get hurt. He shouts at them to stop, saying things have gone too far. Their punches could collide, with a heavy impact against each other. But before their punches could land, both attacks were stopped. Someone is holding their hands right between them. They were flung into the air. The next thing they know, both of them are on the ground. Soda asked what just happened. The Captain Kakeru stepped in and stopped them. He knows they both need to cool off. Karen is shocked and about to explain herself, while Soda is just confused. Who is this guy? Kakeru introduces himself as the captain. What a way to meet him. He says he's happy to finally meet Soda. Still shaken, our MC felt the same. Not exactly how he expected their first meeting to go. Then Kakeru teased both of them, saying, it looked like they still had plenty of energy left. They were summoned. A red gate with a glowing ring appeared downtown Soda. Kakeru and Karen walked slowly through a quiet, residential area. They kept looking around again and again, checking house numbers, corners, rooftops, anything that might hint at danger. They wanted to be absolutely sure this was the right place, where the red gate had been reported. The street looked normal, too normal. Karen scratched her head as she stared at the houses. She admitted that she was terrible with residential areas, and to her every house looked exactly the same, no matter how long she stared at them. Same roofs, same windows, same fences. She could get lost in 5 minutes if left alone. Kakeru just laughed lightly. He said it was actually a good thing they arrived early. If they had shown up late, and the enemies had already started pouring out of the gate, civilian casualties would have been insane, and no one wanted that on their conscience. Of course. Karen agreed nervously. Our MC then asked if the captain had been there during the previous invasion. The captain answered yes. As they kept walking, Soda casually mentioned the guy he had been with earlier, Ichijo Kotora. He said Kotora ended up joining the Heavenly Wolf group. Their expressions changed slightly. The captain shared that the Squad 7 leader did mention it to him. Karen let out a quiet sigh, and muttered that she felt bad for him. Being assigned to that group wasn't exactly something to celebrate. Soda looked confused. He asked them directly what was wrong with Squad 7. Before either of them could answer, Kakeru suddenly raised one hand. The air in front of them shifted. It felt like the space itself was being pulled open. And then the red gate appeared. It stood there silently between the houses, glowing with an ominous red light. Then they noticed something else. Another team was already standing in front of the gate. Soda tilted his head, not fully understanding why that mattered so much. Kakeru explained calmly that they were here on the association's request. The other team was probably called in by the local residents. That sometimes happens when civilians panicked, and contacted whoever they could reach first. A thin man stepped forward, as he's smoking a cigarette. He introduced himself as Masatoshi Nishina, captain of Team Marion Kakeru, and politely introduced himself as captain of Heavenly Wolf Squad 1. The reaction from Team Marion was immediate. Several of their members looked shocked. They whispered to each other, clearly recognizing the name. Everyone reacted except Nishina. His expression barely changed. Kakeru started explaining that they were there to investigate the gate on behalf of the association. But Nishina cut him off and told them flatly to leave. Karen's eyes narrowed right away. She reminded him that they were directly summoned by the association. Why should they be the ones backing off? Nishina calmly confirmed what Kakeru already suspected. Team Orion had been called in by the locals first. According to association rules, when missions overlapped, the team that arrived first got priority. No exceptions. Kakeru nodded. He understood the rule, but he added that turning back, after receiving a direct request from the association, would be humiliating. Even so, he kept his tone polite. He asked if they could at least enter together and help clear the gate. Nishino scoffed, saying, "Big-name teams always tried too hard to stay in the association's good graces." Still, he agreed with one condition. Heavenly Wolf would follow Team Arian's orders inside. The captain agreed. Karen immediately looked at Kakeru in disbelief. Why agree to that? But Kakeru didn't seem bothered at all. If lowering his head kept things smooth and avoided pointless conflict, then it was a small price to pay, the captain said. Karen couldn't argue anymore. Watching him, Sota realized something. His captain was unbelievably calm, and that calm spread to the people around him. The two teams soon stepped into the Red Gate. Together, RMC had a bad feeling about this. Some of Team Ryan's members clearly looked down on Kakeru. To them, his humility felt weak. Nishina even joked that despite being a pretty boy, Kakeru was still captain of a top team. Clearing the catacombs with him around would look great. On their record, Nishina was already planning inside his own head. If they succeeded here, using Heavenly Wolf as backup would only make them look better. The moment they entered the catacombs, everything changed. The air felt heavier, the spaces darker, and then they were surrounded. Night-like enemies appeared from every direction, dozens of them with heavy armor and large weapons. Team Ryan froze. Even Nishina looked shaken. His pride took a hit just from seeing how outmatched they were. His teammates started asking for orders, but no command came. He was scared too. Behind them, Sota activated his burning eyes. Flames flickered faintly in his gaze as he studied the enemies carefully. These weren't like the weak grunts from before. They were stronger. Sota knew Team Ryan couldn't handle this alone. Kakeru quietly said the same. Humanity barely understood the catacombs. Red gates were considered the most dangerous, but that judgment was based on limited knowledge. If enemies this strong greeted them at the entrance, then this gate was something entirely unknown. One knight suddenly moved toward a member of Team Marion. The team member froze. Fear took over completely. His legs refused to move. To Karen, it almost felt ridiculous. They had acted so confident earlier, but now they were falling apart. Sota didn't hesitate. He dashed forward, flames bursting from his fist. He slammed a burning punch straight into the knight, stopping the blade inches away from the frozen team member. That single move drew the attention of the surrounding enemies. Sota asked the Orion member if he was okay. Karen looked annoyed that he just did that. Kakeru pointed out that it was like Sota moved without even thinking. He wanted to become the strongest conqueror. He added, and that meant one who never let anyone die. Karen was speechless. It sounded unrealistic, like a dream too big for one person. But Sota wasn't backing down. He attacked the remaining knights that were in front of him. That thought hit both Kakeru and Karen harder than expected. The captain asked Karen herself, "What was your goal now?" As Sota kept fighting, dodging left and right while throwing flaming punches, Karen felt something stir deep inside her. Was it to become stronger than her peers? The captain asked, what did she really want? To outshine other teams. Team Orion was also fighting, trying their best to hold their ground. Then a memory hit Karen, a lifeless body. Someone she failed to save when she was younger. She remembered standing there powerless. That was why she became a conqueror. Not for status, not for praise, but so she would never feel that helpless again. Anger filled her chest, anger at herself for forgetting. When an enemy slipped behind Sota, blade raised. Karen moved instantly. A sharp boulder suddenly shot up from the ground. Her attack came down with overwhelming force, striking the knight in its side before it could even react. Sota turned to look. She clenched her fists tightly. She wouldn't let anyone die. Not again. She was angry at herself for losing sight of who she was after trying so hard to get stronger. Kakeru smiled quietly while watching the two of them fight, with fire in their eyes. His team was finally burning with purpose. and now they're ready to face whatever waits. Inside the red gate now they're completely surrounded, trapped in a tight circle of raging night, like enemies closing in from every side. Even with all that, Sota and Karen don't step back. Karen moves first without wasting a second. She slams her power straight into the ground and unleashes Rage of Gaia. The ground explodes upward in sharp stone pillars, like giant spikes shooting out from below. Next was Piercing Strike. Spikes crash into the charging enemies. For a split second it looks like it might work, but then reality hits. The spikes don't go through. They don't even slow the knights down much. The enemies keep marching forward, pushing through the broken stone like it's nothing. Sota doesn't let that sink in. He steps forward and forces his mana out fast, firing stun to try and stop their movement. Then right after that he unleashes Blaze. Flames burst across the battlefield, spreading wide and burning hot enough to melt steel. He even throws out a full-powered hellfire, swallowing several knights in a wave of intense flames. But once the fire clears, the knights are still standing. Their armor is burned and blackened, but not broken. Their defense was stronger than expected. That's when it really hits Sota and Karen. Yes, hellfire can take one down, but not like this, not with this many coming at once. If Sota keeps using that much mana over and over, he'll run out before they even get close to winning. As the knights keep advancing, Sota narrows his eyes and looks past the front line. That's when he sees it. Behind all the soldiers stands one massive knight, towering over the rest. It barely moves, but its presence alone feels heavy, like it's crushing the air around it. It's clearly different from the others. Karen sees it too and immediately knows what it is. The boss. It stands out the moment you notice it. Karen quickly tells Sota to aim everything at that one target, no holding back. If they can take down the boss, maybe the rest will fall apart, or at least lose coordination. They both start gathering power for one big attack. End res take Blaze. They pull in as much mana as they can, compressing it down, betting everything on one clean hit. Right before they release it, the boss knight slowly lifts its sword. At the same time, several soldiers rush in front of it and lock together, forming a solid shield wall. With perfect timing, Sota and Karen's combined attack slams straight into the shield line instead. The explosion is loud and powerful, but the boss behind them doesn't take a single scratch. Then the boss points its sword forward. It's clearly a signal. The soldiers react instantly and charge together in perfect sync. That's when it sinks in. These enemies aren't just wild monsters. They're organized. They follow orders. They move as one. This isn't a pack. It's an army. Off to the side, Nishina is crouched low, frozen as he watches everything fall apart. He mutters to himself, wondering why Kakeru's team is still fighting, instead of running while they still have the chance. He doesn't notice Kakeru standing right behind him. Kakeru calmly says they're fighting because they know what happens if they run. Two of Nishina's teammates shout at him, panic clear on their faces. They tell him to retreat, call for backup. Leave this to Heavenly Wolf. Nishina stays quiet for a moment. Then he shakes his head. No. If they run, what happens next? If this army breaks through, it won't just be random people who die. It'll be their town, their homes, and their families. That thought snaps something inside him. He stands up straight and shouts that they don't need to win everything here. They just need to survive and protect this place. That's enough. Team Orion moves right away. This time there's no hesitation. They rush forward and put themselves between the enemy army and Heavenly Wolf. They fight side by side, with Sota and Karen clashing head-on with the knights. Swords crash into armor, sparks flying with every hit. Powers explode around them, shaking the ground and filling the air with heat and shockwaves. And Kakeru observed in the distance. But even then, it's still not enough. The knights are too strong. There are too many, and the boss is still standing in the back untouched. Then Karen feels it. The air changes. Kakeru is preparing something big. The ground starts to rumble under their feet. A heavy pressure spreads across the battlefield as Kakeru releases his aura. It's overwhelming, impossible to ignore, even without looking at him. Karen feels her body respond, like something is pulling her into sync. Their powers start lining up naturally. The ground beneath them rises as Kakeru uses their combined abilities to lift everyone at once. Team Ryan and Heavenly Wolf are pulled upward, standing on a massive platform created by Karen's power. Sota asked Karen what was happening. She explained that the captain used his skill to move them, a giant hand made completely of aura appears in the air, slowly taking shape giant killing. The knights were caught off guard. The massive hand shoots forward in one brutal punch. The shockwave alone sends the knight army flying. In every direction, bodies scatter across the battlefield, completely unable to stand against the force. Karen knew that the attack wouldn't just hit one target. It would clear everything in its path, smashing through the soldiers, and opening a straight line to the boss. The giant strike keeps going, carrying all its weight forward. That single blow is overwhelming, heavy enough to crush an army, strong enough to rival even the Grand Captain. The two were shocked. This is the power of their captain. That single heavy punch landed directly on the boss. The impact rang out through the entire catacomb, loud enough to make everyone's ears buzz. But that attack clearly drained Kakeru. Sweat poured down his face, and his shoulders rose and fell as he tried to catch his breath. For a second his mind drifted back to his training days. He remembered using the same skill against a solid wall. Back then the crack he made was smaller, rough and uneven, nothing compared to what he just did. Still his mentor had stared at the damage, then at him, clearly impressed. He had congratulated him for awakening his skill. Kakeru had been exhausted that day too, but he hadn't cared about the pain at all. He was just happy to see that proud look on his mentor's face, happy that someone believed in him. His mentor, Soda's father, placed a hand on his shoulder and told him he did well. The way he said it felt like a proud father praising his son. Back in the present, applause pulled him out of that memory. His team was cheering loudly. Soda couldn't believe it. That skill was insane. It almost wiped out the entire army in one move. But Kakeru just shrugged like it wasn't a big deal. He said his pride and joy was just a destructive skill. Pure power, no trick, no clever mechanics, just brute strength. He even added that compared to Karen's abilities, or Mr. Kichiro's techniques, his own skill wasn't flexible, and could be inconvenient at times. That made Soda pause. Why did his captain casually bring up his father? He asked if the captain knew his father. Before Kakeru could explain, Nishina and his team suddenly bowed deeply. They apologized, saying they didn't realize who he really was. That Captain Amami Kakeru was actually one of the Knights of the Round, known as the Fist of Destruction. Kakeru waved it off like the title didn't matter. But now Soda was even more curious. He asked what the Knights of the Round actually were. Karen stepped in, saying it wasn't something most people knew. She explained that the Knights of the Round were the first official team, formed in Japan. The Player Association later used them as the model for the current team system. Many of their members eventually became high-ranking executives to pass on their knowledge to the next generation. Kakeru added that there were exceptions. Some, like him, joined new teams instead. Others, like Soda's father, chose to work as mercenaries. That shocked Soda even more. His father and his captain were in the same team. Kakeru smiled and said it went even deeper than that. Soda's father had been his mentor, the one who helped him become a player, the one who gave him a chance. Meanwhile, at the Player Association building, inside Chairman Ryanosuke Bando's office, the atmosphere was tense. Bando sat behind his desk, with a cigarette between his fingers, smoke slowly rising into the air. Across from him sat UCI and Yamato. They were talking about Soda, since the chairman already knew that Keiichiro's son had joined Kakeru's squad. Suddenly Bandu crushed his cigarette into the ashtray. His mood shifted instantly. He said they would overlook the boy's illegal actions, including entering the catacombs without authorization. Yusei thanked him and promised they would deal with Soda properly, while Yamato casually slurped his juice. The chairman snapped, "What's with that attitude?" He barked at the chief. Yamato, left with no choice, sarcastically thanked him. UCI immediately apologized to the chairman and promised that he and Kakeru would straighten things out later. Yamato then casually added that, since Soda's father had been their old comrade, helping his son was only natural. The chairman shouldn't act like Soda owed him for that. That made Bandu snap. He reminded Yamato that he was still the association chairman, and couldn't make decisions based on personal feelings. But then his expression changed. He noticed something in Yamato, the way he carried himself, the way he spoke. Yamato was slowly becoming like him. The chairman explained that Heavenly Wolf was gaining influence through strength, and that kind of power made reckless behavior dangerous. Yamato needed to understand his position. Some people were already starting to resent him. Yamato admitted he could be arrogant and overbearing, but he said he never forgot the responsibility that came with power. His tone grew serious. He said he asked himself every day whether he was doing the right thing. Then his aura flared blue. Electricity spread around him, slowly filling the office. He said he had no time for idiots who refused to think or put in effort. He didn't care about complaints from people who hid in the back with their arms crossed. His energy reached the chairman's cigarette. It lit instantly. If anyone had a problem, they could say it to his face. Yamato added he took a slow drag. The smoke reminded him of something Yamato once said when he first met Kakeru. Yamato shrugged and said, they grew up in the same facility, so of course they would think alike. Bando's thoughts drifted to the past. He remembered punching a young Kakeru in the face, shouting that this wasn't a place for kids or childish dreams. The punch knocked Kakeru to his knees. Bando kept yelling like a strict father, trying to scare sense into a stubborn son. But Kakeru had talked back without hesitation. He said he would become a player no matter what, so Bando should stop complaining and just take him along before it escalated further. Kaichiro stepped between them. He sided with Kakeru, saying the kid was serious. He reached out his hand to help Kakeru up and asked if he was okay. Then he introduced himself as Shizaki Kaichiro and asked for the boy's name. Kakeru was surprised. This man felt completely different from Bando. His aura was calm, light, and reassuring. Kakeru took his hand. That moment changed everything. Back in the catacombs, Kakeru explained that he, Yamato, UCI, and Toma had all grown up in the same orphanage. The place was always short on money, so as the oldest he felt responsible. He thought he had to do something to help, and the person who reached out to him back then was Soda's father. Hearing that made Soda smile. Felt like there was a connection between him and the captain through his dad. He was about to ask for more stories when a bright, white light suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Everyone froze. A gate began forming right in front of them. Inside the catacomb, a gate inside another gate. Was that even possible? That wasn't something that was supposed to happen. None of them could make sense of it right away. Karen and Soda just stood there staring at it. Completely stunned, Soda quickly looked at his captain, hoping he would say something, anything that made this easier to understand. But Kakeru was already staring at the gate in silence. His expression had turned serious, almost distant. The way he looked at it made it clear this wasn't entirely new to him. A memory surfaced in his mind. The first time he'd seen a gate appear inside a catacomb. Back then he had been standing next to Kaichiro. Neither of them had known what was waiting on the other side. They didn't know if the queen was there or something even worse, but they both agreed to check it out anyway. No hesitation. Things went wrong fast. The next clear image in Kakeru's memory was Kaichiro, lying on the ground covered in blood, breathing but barely. That scene had burned itself into his mind. The sight of his friend, injured so badly and still trying to stand. Karen's worried voice pulled him back to the present. But Kakeru had already made up his mind. He said he would investigate the gate alone, and Karen and Soda were to call for backup immediately. Both of them just stared at him, shocked. Their captain was the one asking for reinforcements. That alone showed how serious this was. Kakeru explained calmly, but firmly, that this situation wasn't normal, because it was unusual. They couldn't treat it like a standard mission. They needed support as soon as possible. Karen stepped in front of him and blocked his way. Her voice shook, but her eyes didn't. She reminded him that she was the vice captain of the first squad. She couldn't just turn around and run. The six of them stood right in front of the gate. Karen added that she wasn't a kid anymore. She wanted to fight beside him as a player, not be protected from the sidelines. Kakeru then looked at Soda. Soda swallowed his fear and said he wanted to go too. Kakeru's expression tightened instantly. He refused. He didn't want Soda to go through the same nightmare. He once did. Soda didn't understand. That was when Nishina and his team stepped forward. Nishina offered for his team to be the ones to call for backup. He admitted honestly that compared to Kakeru's squad, they weren't strong enough to be useful. Inside a strange gate like this, they would only slow them down. As for these two, they were undeniably strong. He also said that protecting subordinates was important, but trusting them was just as important. If you wanted them to grow. Kakeru thought about it for a moment. Then he agreed. He told Nishina's team to contact the association and request immediate backup. The two minions both felt relief, hearing that they were staying. Before leaving, Nishina turned to Sota and sincerely thanked him for saving his teammate. Earlier, our MC blushed. He wasn't used to receiving gratitude. They shook hands briefly, a quiet sign of respect. The remaining three watched as Team Orion left the catacomb. Our MC waved goodbye, then a voice called out to him. The fireball appeared next to Sota again, floating at his side like it always did. Startled him, even though he should have been used to it by now. It told him that what was about to happen would change everything, a turning point, something that could completely alter their fate. But its voice sounded distorted, like a bad connection. Most of the words were broken and unclear. Still, one message came through. Clearly he needed to go alone. Sota snapped back when Karen and Kakeru called his name. He shook his head and forced himself to focus. Whatever was inside that gate, they were about to face it. Our MC immediately apologized and said he was coming. He turned to the fireball and told it not to worry. He wasn't alone, he had strong, reliable allies with him. Sona finally ran toward the gate. The last thing he heard was a warning. No matter what truth he found inside, he couldn't afford to make even a single mistake. Meanwhile, Nishina's team successfully made it outside the outer gate. They immediately started talking about how to contact the association for reinforcements. They didn't even finish their sentence. Invisible slashes suddenly cut through their bodies. There was no sound, no visible attack, just deep wounds opening across their skin. Out of nowhere, blood spilled onto the ground as both of them collapsed. Instantly, Nishina froze. He couldn't process what just happened. It was too fast. A man stood behind them, telling them to step away from the gate. The aura around him felt wrong. Heavy, twisted, dark in a way that didn't feel human. Anger surged inside Nishina. He demanded to know who the hell this person thought he was. The bastard taunted him, saying it wouldn't matter to someone like him. Just fertilizer anyway. This angered Nishina. He activated his alter ego power without hesitation, preparing to fight, but deep down, he already knew this enemy was on a completely different level. A skill that created invisible slashes across such a wide area should require preparation. Time he wouldn't allow that. His fists glowed green as he rushed forward, zigzagging to close the distance quickly. But the enemy just stood there. Nishina never made it invisible. Blades sliced into him from every direction. Before he could even throw a punch, pain exploded through his body. Blood sprayed out just like it had from his teammates. The man hadn't moved at all, and that was the terrifying part. Nishina dropped to his knees, staring up at the figure in front of him. Monster, that was the only word that fit. The man slowly pushed the injured bodies back toward the catacomb entrance, almost casually, as if returning objects to where they belonged, like they were offerings Nishina could only watch. Helpless and full of regret, he had failed to protect his team. The enemy casually said that they'll make great fertilizer. Their blood-covered bodies lay motionless on the ground as the man turned and walked away, without even looking back. As soon as they stepped through the gate, a strange silence welcomed them. It wasn't just quiet, it felt heavy. There were no enemies in sight, no movement, no sound except their own footsteps. Karen immediately pointed it out. The place was way too quiet. The captain agreed, but they couldn't let their guard down. He volunteered to scout the area, checking every corner and pathway before leaving. He told them to stay sharp and keep their eyes on everything around them. But Karen couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in her chest. The place gave her bad vibes, like something was watching them. She called Soda's name, because he looked distracted again. And he didn't deny it, he admitted. He wasn't fully focused on what they were doing. Karen frowned. There was literally nothing around them. What could possibly be distracting him? Soda hesitated for a second. Actually, there was something. All this time, he had quietly been using his flaming eyes. And what he was seeing wasn't empty space souls. There were countless souls wandering around them. Inside the catacombs, When he said that out loud, Karen froze. This whole place had been filled with ghosts. The entire time, Sota wasn't sure if souls and ghosts were technically the same thing, but close enough. Karen asked if he had ever seen something like this before. Sota nodded. He had seen souls before around the school, in other areas even the other day, but not like this. They were not that many. He explained that usually, the souls he saw looked clearly human, like regular people, just see-through, like when he saw his dad. This time there were so many that it felt overwhelming. Sota wondered if it meant something. Then he noticed one soul staring directly at them. Without thinking much, Sota greeted it. Karen was caught off guard. She thought he was talking to her. RMC clarified that he was talking to a soul. The soul looked shocked a human could see him. The soul immediately apologized for scaring them, and nervously introduced himself as Atsuji. As he spoke more calmly, his blurry shape slowly became clearer, forming a proper human face and body. Atsuji explained that he had followed them because he overheard Sota arguing with his captain. Earlier, Sota tried to remember that moment. Oh, the part where the captain tried to keep them out of danger. A memory came back. Captain Kakeru telling them to call for backup while he handled things alone. Atsuji said something similar had once happened to him when he and his team were exploring the catacombs. They ran into serious danger. His teammates told him to leave and get back up, so they split up. He went alone while the rest stayed together. But the backup didn't arrive in time, and neither did his teammates survive. Even if he would have slowed them down, he wished he had stayed. Just remembering it made him break down. He regretted leaving them more than anything. If he had just been braver like Sota, maybe things would have turned out differently. While Atsuji talked, Sota kept repeating everything to Karen, so she could understand. Karen's expression softened. Then she asked gently if there was anything they could do to help him. Sota blinked in surprise. Karen explained that maybe they could help him move on, somehow let him rest properly. Sota couldn't help but smile at that. Even if Atsuji was just a soul, Karen didn't want to leave him stuck in a place like this. Sota then asked Atsuji what his biggest regret was. Atsuji said he regretted a lot of things, but if he had to choose one, he wished people had seen his skill in action. He wanted to use it in a real fight at least once. He wanted it to matter. Sota asked what the skill was called. Island. Atsuji said. Sota explained to Karen that the skill allowed someone to share exactly what they were seeing with others. Karen thought it sounded more useful for scouting or teamwork, not direct combat. Then she noticed Sota talking half to himself again, and told him to stop because it was confusing. Sota apologized and said he was just thinking about how great the skill actually was. Both Karen and Atsuji looked surprised. Great, really? Sota smiled and was about to explain why, but the scene shifts deeper inside. Captain Kakeru stood in front of a massive gate. He clenched his fists tightly. It looked exactly like the one from before, and that only meant one thing. A huge knight-like enemy suddenly appeared behind him. But Kakeru didn't panic. He already knew there would be a gatekeeper. The gatekeeper swung its sword with massive force. Kakeru blocked it, but what shocked him was that the enemy didn't even budge. He kicked it away to create some distance, and immediately activated his skill. Giant killing. A strong blue aura exploded around him. As he unleashed Ren's strike, a giant blue aura shaped like a hand smashed into the enemy, but the knight barely moved. It was like the attack meant nothing. Kakeru frowned. This one was clearly tougher than the armored enemies they had just beaten. He launched more attacks, trying different angles, but none of them worked. Deep down, he knew only Conquering Fist could finish this, but that skill needed time to charge, and time wasn't something he had just then. Someone called out his name. Karen and Sota appeared beside him. Both looked serious and ready to fight. Sota stepped forward and told the captain they would take over. Kakeru immediately refused. This enemy was on another level. He ordered them to support him and buy him time instead. But Sota didn't step back. He assured Kakeru that it would be fine. He said to leave this one to him and Karen. The two of them faced the giant knight together. It definitely felt stronger than the others, but they weren't scared. They were going to prove they could handle it, and they planned to bring it down in a minute. But Captain Kakeru wasn't convinced at all. He said it was impossible. This knight was clearly stronger than the last boss they fought earlier. They even needed Kakeru to step in, just to finish the enemies. So how were they supposed to defeat this one, when it was obviously on a higher level? The enemy lifted its sword and adjusted its stance, ready to strike at any moment. Sota spoke seriously, he said. He knew Kakeru was always the one taking the lead, and putting himself in danger for them. But if they kept hiding behind him, and letting him protect them every time, they would never grow stronger. His voice was calm but firm. Even his aura felt different, more steady, more mature, like he was finally ready to carry his own weight. In a real fight, he had always wanted to get stronger. That was his goal from the very beginning. Kakeru froze for a second. That feeling, it was familiar, a memory surfaced. Him arguing with his own mentor, saying he wanted to be stronger too, that he hated always being protected. Karen then admitted a bit reluctantly that she agreed with Sota. There was a reason they wanted to fight this one. Themselves, they needed to prove something not just to their captain, but to themselves. So the two of them begged Kakeru to let them handle it. That surprised him even more. After a moment he gave in. He said fine, but if things got dangerous before he could even finish. The two of them cut him off and thanked him right away. Kakeru just stood there confused, and slightly overwhelmed by what he was feeling. Karen called out to Sota to move, and Sota immediately charged in, flames rising around him, watching them rush forward. Kakeru smiled like a proud older brother, but then that smile faded a little. He felt happy seeing Sota grow like this, but he felt like he didn't have the right to. The joy of watching a son grow stronger, that was something he had taken away from his mentor, Kichiro. Back on the battlefield, the air felt heavy, like everything was waiting for the next move. Karen slowly lowered her hand to the ground, and pressed her palm against the rough surface. A soft pink glow spread out from under her fingers, crawling across the battlefield like cracks of light. The ground trembled, and then massive boulders began rising, one after another, forcing their way out of the earth, as if the land itself was responding to her call. Sota didn't hesitate the moment the rocks formed. He dashed forward and leapt onto the first one. He moved quickly, using each floating boulder like a stepping stone, pushing off hard with his legs to gain height and speed. Behind the armored knight, the ground suddenly shifted again. A giant stone hand formed out of solid rock, its fingers tightening into a fist, before swinging forward with crushing force. It slammed into the enemy's back, the impact echoing loudly across the field. The knight was sent flying forward, his body thrown off balance, and heading straight towards Sota. Flames wrapped around Sota's arm. As he pulled his fist back, the fire burned brighter than before. The moment the enemy came within range, Sota drove his flaming punch downward, with everything he had. The impact smashed the enemy straight into the ground. The force cracked the stone floor beneath them. From a distance, Kakeru was only observing them. Their teamwork was clean and well-timed. They weren't clashing or hesitating. But even so, he could tell something was missing. Their attacks were strong, but not strong enough to end it yet. The enemy slowly pushed itself up from the crater, armor scorched and slightly damaged, but still standing. Karen quickly reacted. She slammed her hand back onto the ground, and thick stone wrapped around the enemy's legs, like heavy chains. The rock tightened, locking its feet in place, and stopping it from stepping forward. Sota, she called out firmly. The monster looked up in an instant. Sota appeared in front of the enemy again, flames surging around his body. At the same time, Karen formed massive stone fists. Behind the enemy's back they attacked together, and the enemy could only wait for impact. Sota kept the pressure from the front, throwing heavy flame-coated punches that left burn marks across the armor, while Karen's stone fist crashed into its back. But the knight roared and forced its legs free, shattering the stone trap around its feet. Rock fragments scattered everywhere. As it regained its footing, without wasting a second, it raised its sword and swung it in a wide, deadly arc straight towards Sota. Before the blade could reach him, a thick wall of stone rose instantly between them. Karen had reacted at the last possible second, forming a shield strong enough to block the strike. Sota jumped back safely, breathing heavily but focused. Kakeru watched closely. Their timing wasn't just good. It was almost perfect. They weren't panicking. They were thinking while moving. Sota realized that this enemy was using the same basic attack as the ones they fought earlier. Even as he attacked, Soda's eyes burned brighter. Through the glow of his flames, he studied the enemy carefully. He noticed the pattern of its movements, the way it shifted its weight before swinging, the way its armor absorbed impact. Then he saw it deep inside the armor, hidden beneath layers of defense. There was a small weak point in its soul. It glowed faintly near its chest, close to where a heart would normally be. But just as he focused on it, the weak spot shifted slightly to the side. It wasn't fixed, it was moving. "We need to aim carefully," Soda muttered. Suddenly a sharp, stone spike shot up from the ground behind the enemy, and pierced through its shoulder. The force tore its entire arm off, sending it crashing to the ground with a heavy, metallic thud. Karen said it was Soda who spotted the weak spot. She stood a few meters away, one hand still touching the stone surface. She looked calm, almost relaxed, as if she wasn't even straining herself. Thanks to Atsuji's island, she could see exactly what Soda was seeing. The weak spot wasn't invisible to her anymore. Soda stood still for a moment, flames roaring around him, waiting for the right signal. Karen moved first. She touched the ground, and sand from the broken battlefield lifted into the air. She claimed she was just a modest maiden. The spotlight, of course, she would leave to the hero. The sand violently surrounds the enemy, covering its vision and throwing off its balance. The enemy knight slashed blindly, unable to see clearly through the thick cloud of dust. Through the chaos, Soda charged. His flames intensified, wrapping around his body like armor. As he got close enough, he let out a powerful shout, "Spirit Roar," and drove his fist forward with all his strength. His flaming punch pierced straight through the weak spot in its chest. For a second everything went quiet. Then flames burst from inside the armor. Cracks spread across its body, as fire consumed it from within. The knight staggered, unable to hold itself together any longer. The sand settled slowly, as the enemy collapsed to the ground, burned, destroyed. The whole fight had barely lasted a minute, but it felt much longer from the sidelines. Atsuji stared in disbelief at how fast and clean it was. Soda turned toward him, breathing hard but smiling proudly. "You did it," he said. Then he held out his fist for a bump. Without his skill they wouldn't have pulled it off. Atsuji's eyes watered slightly, as he stepped forward and bumped fists with him. For the first time, his power had made a real difference in battle. A blue screen suddenly appeared in front of them, glowing softly in the air. It displayed a message. "Atsuji Nozomi's regret has been resolved. Clear condition skill must be used in combat." Then another line appeared. "Skill inherited." Atsuji let out a small laugh, looking lighter than before. He thanked Soda first, saying he couldn't have cleared his regret without him. Then, he turned to Captain Kakeru and Karen and thanked them, too. As soon as the skill activated, something changed. They could see him now. Not just sense him, but actually see him standing there. Kakeru blinked in surprise. Karen stared for a second before letting out a quiet "oh." Honestly, Karen admitted that when she first heard about Island, she thought it would be hard to use in a real fight. It sounded useful on paper, but actually making it work in combat felt tricky. But Atsuji had guided her the whole time. He explained things clearly and stayed calm. Because of that, she was able to fight properly. She told him she was really thankful. Atsuji smiled softly. He said he was just glad he got to see them one last time. Like this, RMC was glad too. But then his expression turned serious. He warned them that, ever since he stepped through that gate earlier, he'd had a bad feeling that confused them. What bad feeling? Which gate was he talking about? Atsuji continued saying, felt like he might lose himself. Like if he stayed in this place too long, he would end up like the other souls. Wandering around here, those souls weren't like him. They felt empty, lifeless, like something inside them was already gone. Before disappearing, he told them to be careful. Then, without any dramatic effect, his soul simply faded away. The three stood there quietly. What does losing yourself even mean? Soda wondered out loud. Was that why the fireball didn't come with them earlier? Could it be related? Karen sighed and said that, honestly, Atsuji didn't have to leave them with such an ominous warning at the end. She looked at Soda carefully, and asked if he was planning to chicken out and turn back now. Soda immediately said there was no way. They both laughed a little. They were joking mostly. Then Karen called out to Captain Kakaru and said, they should keep moving, no point standing around. The catacombs weren't going to explore themselves. Right in front of them stood a large golden gate. Kakaru stepped forward without hesitation and placed both hands on it. The heavy doors creaked loudly as he pushed them open. The room beyond was massive. Almost everything inside shimmered gold. The walls, the floor, even the tall pillars lining the sides. Torches burned along the walls, their flames reflecting off the shiny surfaces, and lighting the entire place like a strange, underground palace. Before Soda or Karen could even say anything, Kakaru muttered that this place felt familiar, like he had seen it before. Then Karen suddenly pointed ahead and shouted for them to look. The captain started to sweat. In the very center of the room was something huge. An egg. It was massive. The surface was black, with streaks of gold and purple running across it. It didn't shine brightly, but it gave off a heavy, ominous feeling that made the air around it feel thick. Karen immediately turned to Soda. Do you recognize that? She asked. But when she looked at him, she froze. Soda looked terrified, like he had just seen a ghost. He held his breath because beside the egg, he could see a soul standing guard, and that soul looked exactly like Captain Kakaru. No, it wasn't just similar, it was Captain Kakaru's soul. Soda shouted in pure shock. A throwback. Yamato was casually talking with Chairman Ryanosuke Bandu. The chairman asked him seriously if it was really possible to see the soul of the same person while that person was still alive. Yamato nodded while unwrapping a chocolate bar. He said it was possible. He had met Goku, the vice captain of the second squad. He was sure of it. There was even a time when Soda met Goku's soul in the catacombs and thought Goku had died. Later they confirmed it looked exactly like him. The chairman, sipping coffee, calmly said, maybe it was just someone who looked similar. Yamato made a big X sign with his fingers and said, no way, even the skills the soul used were the same. That only confused the chairman more. Yamato teased him, saying the old man had no imagination. The chairman got annoyed. UCI punched Yamato lightly to stop him from joking around. From the way Yamato was talking, it sounded like he already had a theory. As he opened another chocolate bar, he admitted he did for a short time. Su, his nickname for Soda, had talked to Goku's soul. The stories matched perfectly with the Goku who was alive now. Same memories, same experiences. Yamato held up a half-eaten chocolate bar in one hand and a brand new one in the other. He compared them to the situation. What if one existence split into two versions, both share the same past? Then he said something even stranger. What if even before this world began, there was another world just like it, back in the Golden Palace? Soda still couldn't believe what he was seeing. His captain was standing right beside him, and at the same time, his captain's soul was standing beside the egg. Soda. Karen's voice echoed loudly across the golden hall. But before Soda could even turn his head toward her, a sharp pain exploded across his chest. It happened so fast he didn't even see the blade. There was a loud slicing sound, like metal cutting through thick cloth. Then blood burst out from him. For a split second, he didn't understand what just happened. He hadn't sensed anyone close to him. He hadn't heard footsteps. There was no presence behind him. So how? Soda started to fall from the shadows. Near one of the golden pillars, a figure stepped forward. It was him, the same enemy Nishida's team had encountered before. The first one, he said proudly. The cut across his back was long, deep, clean. Too clean. Blood began spreading underneath Soda, dark red against the shining gold in the distance. The soul that looked exactly like Captain Kakaru stood beside the huge egg. It wasn't attacking, it wasn't moving. It was just watching, but its expression looked confused, almost disturbed, like even it didn't understand what was happening. Yamato's theory flashed. Was their world repeating? Soda's bloodied body lay flat on the golden floor. Captain Kakaru's soul stood a few steps away. Staring at him, he looked completely clueless. Not shocked, not angry, just blank. Karen rushed to Soda and dropped to her knees so fast it hurt. Her hands were already shaking as she grabbed one of her sleeves and tore it off. Without hesitation, she pressed the cloth hard against the deep wound on Soda's chest. Blood soaked through almost instantly. Behind her, Kakaru's soul only watched. He stood beside them, staring at Soda's unconscious face, while blood continued to spill out of him. Then suddenly Soda opened his eyes. But he wasn't on the golden floor anymore. There was no pain in his back, no blood. He was in a strange, empty space. He looked down at himself. No injuries, no wounds. Confusion slowly filled his face as he looked around, trying to understand where he was. That was when he noticed someone standing in front of him. It was Captain Kakeru. At least it looked exactly like him. Same face, same build, same presence, but there was one difference. An eye patch covered one of his eyes. Soda's guard immediately went up. Something about this felt off. He couldn't just accept this at face value. For a second he thought this might be some kind of fake, some trick, but the man calmly denied that, without even needing to be asked. He said he was the real Amami Kakeru, just not the one Soda knew he was from the last world. That only made things more confusing. Last world. He activated his flaming eyes and carefully examined the man's soul, and what he saw made his heart sink. It was real, there was no lie. This was Captain Kakeru. The man explained that the world had looped back. For some reason that time had reset, and that he had lived in the world before. The loop happened. Soda struggled to process that. Everything sounded impossible. What loop? When did it happen? Why did it happen? Nothing made sense. But then Kaku said something unexpected. He said Soda had gotten stronger. In the last world, Soda had just been following them around, carrying heavy bags and trying his best to keep up. He had potential, sure, but he wasn't like this now. Just by looking at him, it was obvious he had gotten stronger. Soda felt awkward hearing that even now. He had ended up getting cut down so easily. He didn't feel strong at all. But he pushed that aside, and asked the question that mattered. In that last world, had he died? Kakeru shook his head. Soda didn't die. The one who died was him. An image suddenly formed in Kakeru's mind. Soda's body was bleeding on the floor. Karen panicked beside him, and Kakeru standing behind them doing nothing. Kakeru realized something at that moment. In this loop, he had been given another chance. But unlike Soda, he hadn't changed. Back in the Golden Hall, the enemy stood in front of the massive egg, staring at it like it was something holy. He called it divine majesty. In his mind, it might have been the happiest moment of his entire life. He even thanked his past self for bringing him here, and tears formed in his eyes. He believed his memories had brought great fortune to their so-called void. A flash of memory appeared. Kakeru kneeling beside a bloodied Kaichiro, in that same golden hall, and standing above them was the same enemy. Back in the present, while the enemy was still lost in his joy, a massive fist slammed into his back. The punch was so powerful that the enemy flew across the hall and crashed into the golden wall, leaving deep cracks behind him. It was Kakeru. Kakeru stood there shaking with anger. Anyone could tell that enemy had just cut down his subordinate. Without hesitation, Karen didn't know what to do. Her captain was furious while Soda was bleeding badly. Her mind couldn't keep up. Even Soda, barely conscious, realized something. That punch was insane. If a normal human had taken that hit, there wouldn't even be anything left. Soul Kakeru interrupted Soda's thoughts. It still wasn't enough. Back in reality, everything changed in an instant. Kakeru suddenly staggered. A sharp slash cut across his eye, and blood poured out immediately. The pain was intense. It forced him to step back. Hand flying to his face, Karen's heart dropped. Now both of them are injured. The enemy appeared behind Karen, as if he had always been there. He mocked his own attack, saying it had been pathetic, that he actually had wanted to split Kakeru's head in two, but his right hand had twisted earlier. Kakeru gritted his teeth, holding back a scream from the burning pain in his eye. He refused to fall. The enemy told him to shut the hell up. He said he should be the one screaming, because they had ruined the best moment of his life. He pulled out a small bottle. Even now, he called them nothing more than lumps of filth. He claimed they should be thankful. He was still thinking rationally, in such an unforgivable situation. Then he stuck out his tongue, and drank the entire bottle in one go. As soon as he swallowed the last drop, his eyes turned bright red. Power surged through him. He said his patience had ended. The twisted hands snapped back into place, like nothing had ever happened. He vowed to carve them up, scatter their bodies, and grind them into the ground. Even while bleeding, Soda forced himself to think. This enemy was completely insane. He had to stand up. He had to help his captain. As he tried to move, Sukakeru stopped him, saying there was no need to help. Soda couldn't understand why. Sukakeru said he knew that man better than anyone, because he was that man for a long time. Now he had been looking for a place to die, ever since he let Keiichiro die. This shocked Soda, then he finally admitted it. Clearly, he was the one who let Keiichiro Soda's father die. The empty space felt heavier. Then he looked straight at Soda, and silently asked the question that mattered most. Do you still want to save a mommy Kakeru? Alright, that's it for today's story. If you want the weekly chapter updates for this series, those will now be uploaded on my second channel, Manhwa Updater. So if you don't want to miss what happens next, make sure to check it out and join the update gang. Thanks for watching, stay cool, stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.